Same night, two fighters. One makes $750,000. The other makes 75 million. 100x difference. Both combat sports, same blood, same broken bones. But here's the part that will make your head explode. The guy who made less, his event actually brought in more money. And in the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you the hidden business structure that's making some fighters filthy rich, while others can barely pay their medical bills. I'm also revealing the one federal law that could flip the entire system overnight. But the UFC is spending millions to make sure you never hear about it. Let's go. August 20th, 2022, Salt Lake City. Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards. Hell of a fight. UFC 278. Kamaru Usman, pound for pound, one of the greatest UFC welterweights. His paycheck that night, at least on paper, $750,000. Leon Edwards gets about $400K plus bonuses. Leon delivers one of the sickest knockouts in UFC history. 5th round head kick, headshot dead. Total take home with bonuses, $1.5 million, $2 million combined for both fighters. Yes. So same night in Saudi Arabia, Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk, heavyweight rematch. These two split $150 million. And that's just the guaranteed purse. It doesn't include sponsorship. It doesn't include the pay-per-view points they negotiated behind closed doors. $150 million versus $1.5 million. Same night. Before you say, well, boxing is just bigger, stop. Because I'm about to destroy that argument with numbers that are going to make you question everything. But first, there's a deal that happened in 2015. Most fans have no idea this even went down. This deal is why your favorite UFC fighter drives a Honda, while a mid-level boxer is pulling up in a Lamborghini. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But right now, we need to talk about the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. But boxing's been around longer, it's more popular, of course they make more money. I thought the same thing. Then I pulled the numbers. Since 2015, the UFC has had 12 events that crossed 1 million pay-per-view buys. And in boxing, only 9. And that's including some of those interesting YouTube celebrity boxing matches. The UFC isn't struggling. They're not the underdog. They're generating the same revenue, sometimes even more, than boxing's biggest nights. So you might be asking, why are their fighters taking home scraps? And here's where it gets wild. On March 5th, 2016, UFC 196, I was actually commentating that. Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor. Total revenue for that event, $80 million. Nate Diaz walks away with about $600K. Conor makes history, the first UFC fighter to break $1 million for a single fight. And combined, $1.62 million from an $80 million event. That's 2%. 2% of total revenue. April 29th, 2017. Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko. Wembley Stadium. The event generated $68 million in revenue. That's $12 million less than the UFC event I mentioned. But Joshua and Klitschko split 30 million pounds. Let me say it again. Smaller event, bigger payout. They took home 50% of the revenue. The UFC pays fighters 16 to 20% on average. The NFL, 48%. The NBA, 50%. Boxing isn't an outlier. The UFC is. And the reason why it's so simple, yet so devastating, when I finally understood it, it changed how I see every contract I've ever signed. Imagine you're an elite fighter, 20 years of training, 5 a.m. wake-ups, 6 hours a day in the gym, sacrificing everything. You're the best in the world. In one universe, you're a boxer. In another, you're in the UFC. Same skills or similar skills, but same sacrifice. But your paths diverge so dramatically, it feels criminal. As a boxer, you wake up to 3 text messages. Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, Frank Warren, and they're bidding for you. They need you. Without you, there's no event. They don't make money. You are the product and you have the leverage. You can negotiate. But what happens if you're an MMA fighter? One text, one offer, here's what we're paying, take it or leave it. And if you leave, good luck. In a PFL or one championship where the money is worse and nobody's watching. This is the actual structural difference that explains everything. The UFC controls 80 to 90% of the market, and there's one piece to this puzzle that's even more sinister. Remember the deal I mentioned, which happened in 2015? Yes, the Reebok deal. Before 2015, UFC fighters could wear any sponsors on their shorts. Condom Depot, dude wipes, some were ridiculous. But fighters were making $50, $100, sometimes $200,000 per fight just from the sponsors. Then Dana White signed a deal exclusively with Reebok. Overnight, fighters can only wear Reebok. No other sponsors allowed. The new sponsorship payments, tiered system, and the maximum payout, only $42,000. Fighters lost hundreds of thousands in income instantly. The UFC's cut from Reebok, $70 million. The fighters saw almost none of it. Today, it's Venom instead of Reebok. But nothing's changed. Fighters still can bring outside sponsors, still kept that 42,000 or something. And meanwhile, Anthony Joshua walks into the ring with Jaguar, Lucozade, and Beats by Dre all over his shorts, making millions in sponsorship money alone. Georges St. Pierre, one of the greatest of all time, he said something on Joe Rogan's podcast that captured everything perfectly. He said, in the UFC, they promote the brand. It's UFC 226 and the fighters at the bottom when you look at the poster. People don't say, I watch mixed martial arts. They say, I watch UFC. But in boxing, they promote the fighter. It's Canelo versus Mayweather. Below you see what they're fighting for. And that's the game. The UFC made itself the product. You're not just buying Conor McGregor, but you're buying the UFC brand, and Conor just happens to be there. And in boxing, you are the product. The promotion just delivers you to the audience. This brings us to the law that could change everything. The Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act passed in 2000, federal law. Created because in the 90s, boxers were getting destroyed by shady promoters. Managers taking 50%, hidden money, rankings being bought and sold. And Congress said enough and passed 3 rules. 1, promoters must disclose all financials, every dollar in, every dollar out. 2, no conflict of interest. And that's a big one. Your promoter can be your manager. The people ranking you can't work for the promotion. And 3, rankings must be independent. Your ranking can be controlled by who signs your paycheck. And this created the free market in boxing, and if you're ranked number 1 by an independent body, every promoter needs you. They compete for you, they bid, and your value skyrockets. Here's the question, why doesn't this apply to MMA? Multiple bills introduced, fighters testified before Congress, and every single time, the UFC lobbies hard to kill it. It makes sense for them. But let me show you why they're terrified. Imagine the Ali Act covers MMA tomorrow. Israel Adesanya, former middleweight champion, his ranking is now independent, not controlled by the UFC. So PFL comes and knocks on his door. Hey Israel, 10 million per fight, full sponsorship freedom. And then one championship comes in and says, we'll match it, plus pay-per-view numbers, and others enter as well. 15 million. Plus, you keep 100% of your merch sales. Now, the UFC has a huge problem, and they can't lowball him. If they lose Adesanya, they lose their champion. They lose pay-per-view buys, they lose international markets, they'd have to compete. They'd have to pay market value. And that's why they fight so hard to keep the Ali Act away from MMA. To be fair, boxing structure has problems too. Fighters padding records, super fights taking years to negotiate, and sometimes they don't even happen. 4 different world champions in the same weight class. Boxing politics that make Washington look functional. The UFC's monopoly, it delivers the best fights more consistently. When Dana wants to book it, it happens. No negotiating between promoters, it's cleaner, simpler, everybody works for the same company. But that convenience, it's paid for by the fighters bleeding for our entertainment. This isn't just about UFC versus boxing. It's about power structures in any industry. It's about knowing when you're the product versus when someone else is the product and you're just the talent. It's the difference between a free market where you have leverage and the monopoly where you have none. Every creator, every entrepreneur, every professional needs to ask. Am I building a career where I control my rankings, my sponsor, my relationships? Or am I a dependent on one platform that can change the rules whenever they want? The UFC's model works brilliantly for the UFC. Now, they will try to do the same in boxing with UBO. $10 billion valuation for the UFC or even more. Dana White making hundreds of millions of dollars. But it's not always working for the fighters. And every time they speak up, they're labeled ungrateful. And here's what makes this even worse. Most fighters aren't just dealing with the pay structure problem. They're also making critical financial mistakes that keep them broke even when they do get paid. I broke down the 5 biggest reasons why fighters go bankrupt in my last video. There's a link popping up right now in the top right corner. And after you finish this video, go watch that one. Because understanding why fighters stay broke combined with what you just learned about the system gives you the complete picture. But before you click over, real quick, if this video opened your eyes to how the industry really works, smash the like button. It helps this video to reach more people who need to see this. And hit the subscribe because this story isn't over. The Ali Revival Act is in motion. I'll make another video on that. Major changes are coming this year and in the upcoming years. You don't want to miss it. And here's the thing. I send out a weekly newsletter where I break down stories like this before they hit YouTube. So link is in the description. Sign up. It's free. And now comment below and let me know. Should the Ali Act cover MMA? Should fighters unionize? Or is the current system actually better for the sport? Let's debate this. Alright, go watch the video on why fighters go broke. It's somewhere here. I'll see you there.